Hello friends, it's Lisa and I'm back with another video today. Today's video is super exciting because if you remember from last week, my last video, which I'll link at the end, it was a craft room organizational, how I organize all my craft stuff kind of overview. This week I wanted to show you how that organization comes into play in my crafting. So this is the pre-video process. You usually don't see it, but it's also why I'm a big proponent of keeping a digital catalog. So you'll see here, I decided to join Simon Says Stamp Monday Challenge, and this week was like vintage. So I knew I'm trying to make cards for all the women that I went on the cruise with, and so I thought, oh, vintage travel, that'll be perfect. So you can see there I searched for family because I know that any person is going to be cataloged in there. I decided to use this Melinda Has a Map because I thought she was so cute and I absolutely love the sentiment that comes with that. Great journey is not measured in miles but in friends, or it's something like that. You can see it at the end, but it was just perfect all around. So then I decided, you know what would be great is if I used that new Tim Holtz stamp that I just got, which is this architecture stamp. So being able to just search and pull up all of these different stamps and just all the different things I want to use is really helpful. You can also see that I'm adding this into, like, I think it's called Note, and it's on Mac. So all my stuff is Mac. I have iPad, iPhone, Mac, but you could obviously just write this out on a piece of paper, or if your computer's near your stash, you wouldn't need to. I write it out so that I have it. As I'm voicing over this video, I actually have that same notepad up, so when I talk about things, I can give you the names of products. As well as that, I pull that up on my phone, and you'll see that in just a second, and I'm able to pull out the right stamp set from my storage. So next I'm going over to my substrates database, which is where I keep all the paper and stuff that I own cataloged. So I decided to go with some watercolor paper today because I feel like you can get kind of a vintagey vibe with watercolor. Next, I also wanted some gold because I feel like gold is a very vintagey color, and I couldn't decide between these two colors, just the gold or the honey gold, and they're both Pearl Mirror satin paper by Tonic, which is amazing, and I want like 10 of every color, but I only have 4 or 5. I try not to hoard it. So see here, I just pulled it up real easy on my phone, and I'm going to pull out all of those stamp sets. So each of these boxes holds my stamps. You'll see here I keep them in the Tim Holtz stamp storage pockets. So some of them, like the cling ones, I just cling onto the back and I put the little ID on inside the pocket. And for some of them, well, for Tim Holtz ones, I can just slide them in. I don't have to like redo them, but for some of them, the acrylic stamps I just put in the slot. So here I'm pulling out the paper, that was the watercolor, and then here I am deciding between the two golds. So I'm showing you, and I kind of liked that honey color. So next I'm looking through my color swatches. I haven't finished my color catalog on the computer because really I use this a lot more. I do need to finish the color catalog on my computer, but the reason why this is an amazing system, having all your colors swatched out, is because of what I'm doing right here. It doesn't matter what type of media I want to use. See, here are the colors that I pulled, and I pulled those rich blues and the brown golds, and they all work together. Even though they're such different colors, I was able to pull together an awesome list or category. And you'll see when I watercolor this Melinda, or whatever her name is, that I only actually use 5 colors, but it works perfectly. So next I'm just drawing out what I want to do. Typically, I don't actually draw it out. I just do it in my head. But I decided to draw it out so I could show you. You'll see B and C here, I just skip over because I end up not including those in the card. And I'll show you that at the end, kind of why. They're just too big and they cover up the background, which was super amazing. I'm not going to throw those away. I'll just use them on a different card. So I'm writing down all the colors, everything that goes together, and what I need to do. This was actually pretty helpful, and I may start doing it. But the first thing I'm going to do is work on the background. So remember, this is the Canson watercolor paper, and it's just an A2 sized watercolor piece of paper that I cut down. I'm heat embossing it, which means I put the powder tool down, I'm stamping with Versamark ink, and then I'm going to pour the powder over it. This is the gold pearl embossing powder, and it's amazing, and it's so cute. But you could get a really similar look if you just have regular gold embossing powder. Then I'm going to heat it with my heat tool and let it dry for just a second. Next, because it didn't cover, that background didn't cover the full panel, I'm just stamping with the other stamp in the set. Now, I'm just going to try and layer them just a tad. Not too much, but enough where it kind of just looks like it's part of the full background. So I'm using the chipped sapphire distress ink, not the distress oxide, just the regular distress ink, and coloring the entire background. I do try and vary how much ink is in different places, but I think this turned out amazing because it's a very vintagey color. I'm going to add the ultramarine Brusho watercolor on top of that. That's not right now. I'll show you in just a second. But the chipped sapphire almost looks like an aged ultramarine or a vintage ultramarine. So it really works out awesome. So here is it dried after just the chipped sapphire. I had thought I was going to add some pearl gold, and I did to the first one, but pearl gold fine tech watercolor, but it kind of detracted from the pearl embossing. So here I'm adding that ultramarine, which is just a more vibrant color. This is why the swatches are so helpful, because I pulled out all the colors and they work really well together. Now, I did consider if they were water-based or not water-based, because to watercolor you have to have water-based media. But Brusho is dried watercolor, chipped sapphire is distress ink, and they still work perfectly together. So you have to take into consideration a little bit, but overall, like having those swatches, I was able to pull 2 completely different media together to make an amazing look. And that's really why I love the swatches, because I'm able to plan ahead and I know that things look good together. Next, I'm heat embossing, and I'm actually using that chipped sapphire distress ink and embossing with clear embossing powder over the top. So it's just gonna, instead of being a bold black, it's a little bit more toned down and it flows better with the rest of the card, but you could definitely just go with black. Next, I'm painting around the edges with the pearl gold. I don't show this in the video, but I end up cutting around the image of the stamp with my Brother Scan and Cut, and I give a little bit of an edge. I think a 0.08 inch margin or something like that. And I knew I didn't want it stark white, and I thought the gold would really stand out against the background. So next I'm using tea dye distress ink and coloring the map. I put a base layer of light color down, and then I'm coming in with more concentrated color and just trying to go into the crevices of that map. Next, I'm coming in with even more concentrated tea dye and going through her bag. So that I do come back to the bag and use the light brown Brusho watercolor to give that some dimension. So you'll see that later, but I'm going to use that same Brusho color I just mentioned, the light brown, and I'm going to color her hair and her skin. So her hair I'm going to color a lot darker, and her skin I'm going to color lighter, but I do add some low lights or shadows. So you can see that I'm doing that here. One thing you can know is you don't have to have a whole lot of colors to make an image look really good. Actually, too many colors kind of confuses your eyes and makes things harder to look at. To make an image look really good, what you need is contrast. So adding those darker shades really helps. The one place I think I could have done a little bit better is right there on the camera. I think I should have mixed a little bit of that brown with the chipped sapphire just to get a slightly differentiated color. So I just painted the blue jeans with the chipped sapphire, and now I'm coming in with the ultramarine, a very light coat, like very light color of that ultramarine for the shirt. And that's about it for her. And I'm using only 5 colors, and one of those is just on the background. So you can really see just by using a smaller palette, it really blended in with the rest of my card and flowed naturally. So here I'm adding that last coat of light brown onto the satchel just to give it some definition. And I did decide to add a second layer of the pearl gold around the edge just because it showed up a little bit more. The second layer really added some definition. Next, I'm taking some Gina K Connect glue and running a bead along the edges. Then I'm going to take my finger and just lightly rub so that the glue goes all along the edge. And I'm going to glitter that using Elizabeth Craft Design. It's something like that. Her color 647 light brown. And just so you know, I actually have all of my little swatches that I used for this in front of me so I can tell you the right colors. But I will try and link them below if I can. But if you have everything swatched out, you can pick colors that are similar to this in things that you already own. So that's definitely an option. It did take me quite a while. I have over 1,000 swatches, and I need to do about 100 more. So here is those 2 ovals that I talked about earlier. You can see she would look pretty cute on them as well, and the whole thing would kind of come together, but it covers up that beautiful background that I created. So I decided to just not use those. I'm creating some colored paper with my B18 Copic marker. I'm just airbrushing it on. I have not mastered the airbrush, so I can't get a perfect blend. So instead of trying to get a perfect blend, I purposely made it textured. I'm also creating a glittered cardstock with that same light brown glitter. And I just put this regular Nina cardstock through my Xyron machine, and I'll put the two papers that we just made through the Xyron again so that they have glue on the background. But if you've ever used this microfine glitter, you just pour it on, pour it off, and then burnish it in. And I also wipe it with a microfiber towel to get all that stuff off. Next, I'm using this Mon Amour tag die from Crafter's Companion to get a really cute element. I'm also going to use this new die from, I forget who it's from, but it's called the Double Stitch die, and they're amazing. It was so cute, and it worked perfectly with my sentiment. So here I'm just pulling up, and all of those little tags were perfectly cut. I didn't have an issue. I used the the big Gemini machine, and I never have an issue. I love the electronic die cutting machines because my wrist doesn't hurt anymore. Next, I'm going to emboss with white embossing powder on top of those little flags. Now, when you airbrush, it will, I think there's some kind of resin or binder or something in the Copic markers that when you draw it on, it sinks into the paper, but when you airbrush it, you get a little bit of tack. So you'll see that even though I completely coated that blue flag with embossing powder resist, whatever that stuff is called, it still had some extra sticky places. So I just knocked those off as well as I could with a brush, and now I'm heat embossing. This is why I really like that gun that I have, because it stands up and I can just use my tweezers to emboss little pieces like that. I have really liked this Gina K ink because it holds super well. By that point, I could move it around with no problem, even though the glue wasn't dry. It's very thick glue, but it's not too hard to come out of that little bottle. So I'm covering the back with some fun foam, easy peasy. Then I'm going to pull the backing sheet off of that little tag, stick it down where I want it, and then glue with some Gina K Gina K glue. I do stick this under my precision press just for a minute or two so that it gets some pressure, and that is it. So if you make anything like this, go ahead and tag me on Instagram. It's Terry Lisa Creates, all one word, just like it is on the channel. And subscribe and like this video if you enjoyed. Here are some additional videos that you may like. And let me know in the comments if you think having your colors and media swatched out would actually be helpful for you. I would love to know, because for me it's super helpful, but I wonder if maybe other people would feel differently. Have an absolutely wonderful day, and it was great to hang out with y'all. Bye.